all three organizations between the chamber and tourism and Main Street eventually, you know, I mean, all three should be working symbiotically together to move the community forward. So that's the opportunity that I'm most excited about.
Well, it's a great space and we really appreciate your willingness. It's
Yep.
going to be fun. And can we start tomorrow if it's approved?
I will make the phone call when the meeting's done.
Okay, well, thank you. Hearing no other questions?
Question.
Oh, yes, sorry, George.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, on 4EB, refers, space will be offered to the chamber to conduct chamber-specific meetings, but it doesn't state what part of the facility. Are we looking at equal square footage? There's no mention of utilities there, if by chance this entity gets charged for utilities across the street, nor is there anything on cleanup.
So I think those are internal between the management of both of those, but I understand our vision is they would be able to use the White Pine Room for their board meeting.
Meaning this room.
Correct.
Yes, this is the White Pine Room.
Okay, it's not mentioned here, and you have a big room outside and you have several rooms in the back. Is the whole facility open to them, or I want to know?
It would be a case-by-case basis. This allows the executive director to make that accommodation, depending on what they're doing. There was still, all of our policies would still have to be followed as far as cleanup and anything like that. And if the executive director felt that a request was unreasonable, he certainly has the authority to deny it. What this does is give the executive director the ability to allow the use of the rooms for the meetings without having to come to the board every time if they wanted to waive the fees.
Yeah, I see this as a very strong partnership, and we both are winners in this.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if we normally have a meeting in that conference room, we would have it here?
Correct.
Yes, correct.
Some of my meetings are late. Is there gonna be someone here to
We
let
can
us?
make adjustments.
We can make
Okay,
adjustments.
that's what I might.
Yep. No, and that was the main thing, is I didn't want to remove your guys' ability to have meetings. It's part of conducting business, you know, so I understand dividing the room in half limits that. So that's why I just offered up these facilities, because.
We'd also have the ability to use the conference hub, et cetera,
Yep.
so that we're to call in and it's not a cell
That's
phone,
nice.
things like that. So I just see it as a lot of extra benefits for both groups.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I'd like to entertain, and Mr. Beecher, if you would give us the as amended or,
Yeah, so I would ask that, to my agenda, that the motion be stated as follows, that I move to approve the shared space agreement with White Pine Chamber of Commerce with the addition in paragraph 2 of the front office. And in fact, if somebody just wanted to say so moved.
Yeah, that would be in
So
2
moved.
and then 4A also, Jim.
So moved.
I'll second it.
was there?
Yeah,
was-
and
That's in 4A also. You have to mention the office.
That doesn't have to be in there, as long as we're adding that to the,
Okay,
okay, so that's the motion sufficient.
Not the whole thing.
Okay. We have a motion by Marietta and a second by Brian. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Thank you. And congratulations, it's going to be a great partnership. Thank you, ma'am. It's going to be a great partnership. Yes. All right, so we'll move on to number 3, discussion and for possible action, approval of letter of support for the KGHM mine expansion. Currently, the mine life is set for 2024. This would take it to 2028 is what they're looking for. There's a meeting tomorrow night on Zoom. There's been lots of coverage of this in the paper and such. So this is just, there have been a request for letters of support from different entities, and I hope the chamber will also.
Chamber is.
Right. So, any questions on this?
And the way I took this one, so the reason there's no material, backup material, is because there was no letter, we didn't write a letter. I saw this as maybe authorizing me and James to construct whatever a letter of support would be with the blessing of the board to go ahead and send in.
Certainly. Okay, I'd like to hear a motion for the approval.
I'll make the motion to approve the letter of support for KGMH expansion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Marietta. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So carried. Thank you, and you'll construct it. Okay, thank you. Number 4, discussion and for possible action, acceptance of resignation of James Beecher and acceptance of application for legal services from Mackenzie Peterson. First of all, I just want to disclose I will be abstaining from this matter as Ms. Peterson will be joining my family very soon, so I will be abstaining on this. So, Mr. Beecher?
Okay, and for the record, she is not a part of your family as of now.
No.
So here's the situation. First of all, I wanted to say, and as I provided in my letter of resignation, I was really honored to be able to work with this board for 3 years, and really, holy moly, I can't say enough about how far everything has come from 3 years ago to the way it is now. It's not even recognizable. I really enjoyed my time here. So as many of you know, legal services is a professional service. Professional services are not subject to competitive bidding. It doesn't mean that you can't go out to competitive bidding, which is actually how I was hired, the board went out to competitive bidding. But when you have a professional service and you know the reputation, because it's not like construction, where you figure everybody who's responsible bidder can do the job needed, so you will have to go with the lowest bidder who's able to take on that job. And legal services especially, a lot of the value is reputation, is skill, is something that's just not conducive to competitive bidding. So while you do have that option, you don't have that requirement. And so why did I put in my letter of resignation? It was not a big, screw you guys, I'm out of here kind of thing. It's just, I've been doing Touring Rec and the school district at the same time as my day job for school district for 4 years now, Touring Rec for 3 years. And I think it's time for me to kind of scale back, especially with, I'm sure you guys are aware, we've had a recent capital murder case come through our office, the district attorney's office. It's gonna take up a lot of time. With this COVID, I expect budget cuts and therefore negotiations to be potential, I gotta be careful what I say in public, but there's a potential for a lot more work at the school district as well. Furthermore, I've worked with Mackenzie for 3 years. I know what kind of attorney she is. I would not have, without a plan, tendered my resignation. I'd have just stuck it out. If you guys, if the option was to go to competitive bid, I would probably ask to withdraw my resignation. Because I really care about the board and I want it to be left in good hands. And I think that would be what would happen with Mackenzie. Of course, Mackenzie and I have a very good personal relationship. So as long as she has permission from the board or the executive director, depending on the issue, she always has access to me. A lot of times lawyers who have a personal relationship with another lawyer, they come across some novel issue that they haven't dealt with, but maybe the other lawyer has, will reach out and kind of as a personal courtesy, that other lawyer will extend whatever help that they can. So that would, because Mackenzie and I have that personal relationship, that is something that she would have available to her, is my last 3 years experience here and then whatever else experience I may have if she were to come across a question. But quite frankly, she's an extremely hard worker, really dedicated, really smart, does great research, and really is probably better at getting things in on time than me, if I'm being quite honest. So you guys,
statements, huh?
oh man, those invoices are the worst.
Are you up to date?
Yeah, I actually sent mine in early this time, so it was actually a sad moment. I typed an email saying, this may be my final invoice, and it's kind of making me sad, but anyway, really love working with you guys. I hope you approve this item in its whole, and if you have any questions, Mackenzie's here, I'm here. I mean, feel free to ask, and, you know, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the board, we want to thank you. We started off and it has come a long way, and we're very appreciative for your guidance.
It's been a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, thanks, James.
I really appreciate all you guys.
And I appreciate you bringing up that with the professional collegiality, because institutional knowledge, you have a lot of that, which is terrific for us. It's not going away.
Right, I mean, I would, you know, as my only concern is we have to keep that attorney-client privilege, so it would have to be, if, say Kyle called Mackenzie for a problem, and she said, you know, do you mind if I run this by James? He would give her that permission, and then she would have the ability to reach out to me in a professional capacity without destroying attorney-client privilege, so. Yeah, I do not wanna leave the board high and dry or anything like that, and leaving it with Mackenzie is far from leaving you guys high and dry. You guys are probably in an even better position because you have a fresh set of eyes and somebody who looks at something a little differently. That's always a good thing.
Well, thank you. We too will we have budget cuts, as you were here part of the budget hearing process. However, it's not the magnitude that education, I mean, we can adjust on our spending, but it's very difficult for a school district to do that. So good luck in that. It's just not gonna be an easy season, and hopefully there's some additional funds that will be coming through to help.
Yeah, we're hopeful, but we'll see.
Indeed, so, any discussion? Okay, any discussion, Kurt or Ian?
No,
Okay, entertain a motion.
I'd like, Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, the acceptance of the resignation of James Beecher and acceptance of application for legal services from Mackenzie Peterson.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion by Marietta and a second by Brian. Any discussion? Hearing none. Again, I will be abstaining. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, and one abstention, so the ayes have it. Congratulations. Would you like to address us?
I would. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. I'm so excited to get to work with you. I greatly admire and appreciate the work that you guys do to benefit our community and everyone in it. And I'm so excited and so grateful to get to help you with that in any way I can. And as Mr. Beecher said, we have a great relationship. Our offices are right next door to each other. I will of course be conferring with Kyle or the board members, whatever the issue may be, if I am going to discuss anything with him. But as Caroline stated, institutional knowledge is fantastic. And so I plan on utilizing that with your permission on a case-by-case basis. And again, I appreciate this opportunity and look forward to working with all of you.
Oh, welcome.
Same here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, number 5, discussion and for possible action, change bank account from Nevada Bank and Trust to First National Bank of Ely. Mr. Horvath, do you have anything to say on that?
Just that, you know, I think my only concern, I know that the board has, you know, their own reasonings for things like this. I just wanna make sure that we are able to transfer the checking and the savings account over so that we're not missing any bills. And our credit card is through, First National Bank, and I believe that's separate through a third party through them.
Isn't it through Nevada Bank and Trust?
Or Nevada Bank and Trust, I'm sorry, but yeah, regardless, you know, whatever the board decides, we'll work with Jeff to make sure everything's transferred smoothly. It's end of the fiscal year, so, it's a good time at any to go ahead and do that, so. But yeah, that's my,
Any comments or discussion?
Did we just decide to move because it was a more convenient location?
Well, it is that for sure. I think during the last several months, I certainly in particular have watched the community relations with SBA loans, with everything, and just the stepping up to the plate for our community. And none of them are actually local banks except F&B. They're all
The following program is sponsored by The Greek, Ely's Radio Shack dealer at 570 Altman in downtown Ely, and brought to you as a public service by Georgetown Media in Ely, Nevada. White Pine County Tourism and Recreation Board meeting, June 16th, 2020.
We may not need to do Zoom after this, because we could just have a call in.
Yeah.
That would sure be easier for people. The county can keep it up.
Oh, as far as the Zoom, I think so.
Hey, where's the?
I can't afford 9 people only.
He
Yeah,
was
we
speaking
got a lot
of
more
like
attendance
some
with that,
conventions and
so.
stuff, that it was even bigger than
Yeah,
this
it's
one.
good public
And so I was like, yeah, we can't use that one, yeah. All right, Ian, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and turn you towards the board and let you do your business.
It is, welcome in. It's 2:02. I want to call the White Pine County Tourism and Recreation Board meeting, special meeting to order. It's June 16, 2020. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Brian, would you please lead it?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll start with public comment. Anyone here with public comment? Never? Do you have any comment? Wayne? Mackenzie? Public comment?
No.
James?
No.
George?
Thank you. Madam Chairman, the meeting backup materials were not made available until 2.5 hours before the meeting. The Nevada Open Meeting Law
Excuse me,
states
George, would you be able to come closer, because we've got people on 2 different devices?
they need to show up at the meeting. I don't mind. If they took on an obligation, then they need to
Well,
fulfill it.
we'd like them to be able to hear you.
I believe they can hear me.
Okay.
We're gonna find out. Again, the meeting material, the backup materials for the meeting were not made available until 2.5 hours before the meeting. Nevada Open Meeting Law states the materials must be made available 3 days prior to the meeting. The law allows for some leeway, but what was provided 2.5 hours ago does not qualify, not even close. That material should have been made available 3 days ago. Pretty sloppy. How many times I gotta tell you guys that? Madam Chairman, on your agenda item, Roman numeral 2, 3, you consider approval of a letter of support for KGHM line expansion. There's nothing in the packet for the public to read. I think that's a good idea, but you should have it made available. Madam Chairman, on your agenda item, Roman numeral 2, 4, you are to consider the acceptance of resignation of Mr. Beecher and the application for legal services from Mackenzie Peterson. I don't have a problem with that, but I want to know if you advertise for legal services. I believe you need to. We're always looking for a better deal. Madam Chairman, on your agenda item, Roman numeral 2, 5, you're to consider changing the bank account from Nevada Bank and Trust to First National Bank of Ely. Local procedure has always been to spread government banking services, and not just to one bank only. You're not being fair to the smaller banks, and you need to keep that in consideration. That's why you don't see everything in one bank. We all need equal opportunity. Madam Chairman, the agreement to be considered with the Pine County Chamber for shared space need to be scrapped. The Chamber, I remind you, is a private club that promotes only their members. I remind you of the ad they ran in the local paper dated March 13th, 2020. Chamber bucks could only be spent with chamber members. And again, just recently, the Robinson Mine gave each employee a bonus to be spent in the community. Only if that entity was a chamber member. That's wrong. Well, how they spend their money is fine, but that's where the separation needs to come in, period. You're here to promote all businesses, not a private club and not just a select few. Downtown is hurting enough as it is, and we need to address that. Madam Chairman, I do not see any effort to remove offensive signs near our most visible properties such as the new Holiday Inn. I believe we're leaving a negative impact on the county golf course in particular. Visitors may wonder what kind of, what might happen to them if they're on the course. Just what kind of area in this is this in? This is not good. This is not good at all. There's nothing wrong with being angry and wishing to make a statement, but not like this. Remember what I said?
That's 3 minutes
Guys,
first, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chachas.
Main Street America, no monies.
Okay,
You guys
so,
are talking out both sides of your mouth.
we'll go to number 2, Roman numeral number 2, new business number 1, discussion and for possible action, approval of agenda including removal of agenda items. Any changes? Okay. If I could hear a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda as posted?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Thank you. Number 2, discussion and for possible action, approval of shared space agreement with the White Pine County Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Horvath.
All right, so just, we had our meeting with Chamber Representatives, legal counsel, and then Ian was there as the board representative. Pretty much discussed what we've been talking about in negotiations, and I feel like we came to an agreement that everybody seems to be cool with, and I think that's what we're here to kind of show the support from both sides of this. Essentially what it is the original agreement, and James, please correct me if I'm wrong, or speak out of line, but both organizations continue to keep their autonomy. So Mr. Chachas is concerned about the chamber being a private club. They still can be, and we can still operate under our NRS codes, no problem.
Well, he could, excuse me, could I interrupt? They are a 501c6,
Yes.
which is not private, that's a nonprofit.
Okay. Either way, the autonomy can continue. We're just talking about, operating out of the same space. And so we're gonna be doing the retro fit to the interior, as we needed. We're going to occupy the front half and the front office for tourism-related duties, turning that into the visitors' lounge. The meeting room will be divided into half. One half will continue to be the chamber's office. The other half will be to the chamber's discretion on renting it out to the horse races, Main Street, housing it all into one situation. As the agreement says, there will be no monthly rent charged by the chamber to us. There'll be no utilities charged to us for a period of 3 years, unless, and this is the clause that was put in that the chamber wanted, unless there is some noticeable spike in utilities, at which time we can then negotiate what it is. But we feel like for the amount of investment that we'd be putting into that building, 3 years would be close to equal of what it would be if we were renting and doing all of that too. So there's essentially a tit for tat kind of thing, and so I believe, that pretty much hits the meat and potatoes of it. Is there anything that I've left out that is?
Yeah, so specifically when it comes to the utilities, there's a limited reopener, and what that limited reopener is, and that's under 4B, is just for the payment of electricity. And anybody, so if they notice a spike, I would imagine that would trigger the chamber to have this reopener so we can negotiate from there. But the reopener doesn't require a spike, it just requires them or us, if we wanted to for some reason, to say to the other, hey, let's negotiate the electricity costs here. You open it just for the purpose of renegotiating that. It doesn't affect the balance of the contract. Because of that, I actually took out the automatic renewal. So I have this for 3 years. probably after 2 years, we'll probably start wanting to look at how that's working for everybody and how to fashion a new agreement that would work for everybody, because the first 3 years is basically gonna be paid for part in the value that they get from the employee there, and part the value that they get for the building for the refurbishment that we do. After that, you know, we may want to split utilities or something, but that's gonna be up to the board at that time. So there was the talk of the front office, and was it half of the meeting room?
So it would be the front lobby area
Right.
and then the office that Wayne currently has.
Okay, so we would be renting that office as well?
That would all be part of the agreement. So we
Part
would
of
have
the
that
agreement.
front space, and then the meeting room, that long meeting room would be divided into half, which would take on 2 offices. One of which would be occupied by the
Okay,
chamber.
So I'm clear, because what I'm gonna ask the board to do is approve this agreement, subject to these changes, so I wanna make sure that we're clear. So we have the front lobby space that's reflected in the current lease, and then there's a front office that we will be.
Yeah, it's the one that's kind of got like an open window that
Okay,
is essentially the receptionist
and then,
office. It's
and
used.
then half of the meeting room,
No, the meeting room itself, we'll divide it in half, but the chamber would occupy
half,
one half, and then they would have.
so that has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so what I would ask for, if the board so chooses to approve this, is that you approve it with the change of, to paragraph 2 to include the front office. And then I will make that change and send it back to you, and we can get signatures and all that. Sorry to be so particular, but I just
Well,
want to
now
make
I'd
sure.
rather be particular now than, have to be later,
So if I could clarify then, so your planning, the plan is that where Wayne is currently, that would just be totally opened up. It's not as, so that we can have more of a reception area for visitors?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so it's-
I'm envisioning the person who is staffed and being that receptionist position would occupy where Wayne is currently. But that whole front area would be the visitors lounge.
But we won't have the window or that wall.
I'm picturing keeping that, but we're gonna take out the quarter wall and we're gonna essentially rearrange that whole front lobby area so
So
that it's
it's more
more
open.
open.
Mhm.
I'm envisioning what I've been calling a visitor's lounge.
Mhm.
Couches, a coffee table, the brochures, sit down, we'll spread out the maps, we'll talk about, whatever we need to talk about. But that would also include an opportunity for the chamber, if somebody's in there, wanting to open a business, that visitor's lounge would also be open. Or if somebody from Main Street was in there, it just would be that, a welcoming setting for people to sit down and stay a while.
Okay, so currently the horse races rents an area from that.
Mhm.
So then that second office would be available for rental, even like if horse races and Main Street wanted to cohabitate that second
And
office.
I'm picturing a cohabitation of that. But again, that would be managed by the chamber, and would be,
And we are going to decorate both sides, aren't we?
yes.
Okay, so we're decorating the entire park
Mhm.
to give it one theme and one
Mhm.
feel and one
Yeah,
brand.
and it's gonna have this wood, tongue and groove wood, it'll have, I believe what Sean had pitched was a blue walls, light wood, and just kind of the same natural elements, art hanging on the walls, things like that, so it would keep the same feel of what we were kind of going for here,
Okay,
without the carpet.
okay, any questions? Yeah, this is pretty wild. Any questions or James?
Yeah, I'd like to make one more statement, just because it's come up a couple times. If you look on the very first page under the whereases, if you have any questions about your legal authority to take this action, that's outlined in the first page with cites to NRSs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions from board members? Brian?
I don't, I liked it. When I read it, I thought it was
Cool.
Marietta? Ian, any questions?
Looks pretty straightforward to me.
Okay, great.
Good job, guys. Thank you.
Kurt?
No questions from me, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, from the audience, Necker and Wayne, anything that hopefully you're excited about this?
Yes.
Good.
We are. I think it's gonna be a good working relationship.
Certainly, and you will not have to be the visitor center king
I can
to do chamber.
Work both sides.
Yeah, so this will be wonderful. So we'll decorate everything, consistent branded theme. We will staff it, so we have a branded message that
Yep.
we don't have to worry, you know, jumping in with people.
Consistent message, training, consistent theme,
Great.
you know. And just the ability to all be in the same office to work together, you know, I mean.
From out of town, and there's been a concerted effort in our community from support from FNB. And so it's nothing to the service, it's been fine, but
Support where support comes from.
that's right, and, you know, rewarding and really supporting businesses that have really helped our community.
I'm fine with it, I just was wondering what, I think with both, I think with both. The convenience of having them so close is the best.
It certainly is, that closeness, we can walk across the
Yeah.
street, and it's done
Well,
that
and
for
we-
years.
so,
We do have an account with them currently, and that's where the holding accounts, the dual holding accounts with new property owners goes through them currently. So we already do have a relationship, and so.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Entertain a motion?
I'll make the motion, switch over to Divided Banking Trust, or I mean, the First National Bank.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second to change the bank account from Nevada Banking Trust to First National Bank of BU. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And as the executive director, thank you for taking care of that.
I'll take care of it, you're welcome.
Okay, and we are now back at public comment again. Any comment from our chamber partners?
Yes, I know you already set the James' resignation, but I think you should have made a stipulation that.
You wanna go up to the Zoom? They can't hear you, Wayne.
Or should be altered to fit McKenzie.
So can you come up, because they can't hear you and they need to hear this, all the way up if you could.
You know where it's at?
Ian and Kurt need to hear this good comment.
No, what I was saying is, I know we've already set the James' resignation, but I think part of the motion should have been that he alters his outfits and he'll wear all the redents to fit McKenzie.
Thank you, Wayne. George, any comments?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chairman, the new parking lot for the convention center, again, does not meet minimum ADA requirements. The center walkway has not been put back in to keep pedestrians off the street, especially those on wheelchairs. Who inspected and approved the project? I'd like to know. The center needs to be put back in. By the center, I mean the center walkway. At least four street lights within a block of the center have been out for 6 months to a year. This board is not leaving a good impression on our downtown community. Mr. Carson needs to step up to the plate. I've reported this more than once to the board. It's been a year since I've reported to the city clerk. Mr. Bullis, the city pays better than $500,000 for patrol services. Hasn't anybody noticed that we have a problem in this area? Lastly, what is wrong with this board putting in some kind of concern? I've been to all these meetings, I've not seen one letter of concern about the lighting in this downtown area. This is the prime area, and we're out in the dark. Not gonna cut it. Let's see, Madam Chairman,
Excuse me.
the Nevada Northern Railroad is, again, continuously getting additional grant money, over $240,000 just from this board. I'm repeating myself here because I'm not getting any answers from you folks. They need to be either put under the Nevada Open Meeting Law or need to be cut off. They've got tens of thousands of dollars possibly involved in a embezzlement. We don't know that. And if it was it federal monies? Was it this board's monies? We don't know. We need to know. You can't just fraudulently give out money and not be responsible for it. They need to be put to the test, period. You can't do that in your business, I can't do it in mine. If you don't have a business, and you take on an obligation for the community, for the city, for the county, you have an obligation for fiscal responsibility, and I don't see it happening. I've asked in the past about the $4,000 given the community choir to be returned. They were not a 501c or whatever the case may be at the time they got that money. It was a fraudulent claim. That money needs to come back. They just put up a phony plastic, whatever you want to call it, on the roof. I'm not saying they're not having a tough time, but so is every other businessman in this community. No permit, no inspection, no contractor. If we're gonna look away the other way from somebody else, you're gonna look away for everybody. That needs to stop. In regards to the murals, they look nice, but they need to be lighter in color, folks. They're a little too dark. If you want to see a good-looking mural, go look at the Siscar, the old Siscar.
3 minutes, thank you, George.
Pardon me?
Thank
Three
you,
minutes,
Mr.
thank you.
Judges.
Thanks, sir.
All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
It's been made, the motion's been made by Brian and seconded by Marietta. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Thanks for making the special time too, everyone.
Yep. Thanks for calling in, Kurt. Ian, thanks for zooming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Mary, would you?
Phone button.
This has been a Georgetown production. George Chachis reporting.